It's
all right. Check out the top.
Hey, I love it. I love that. Actually, where'd you get that? I have never seen that.
Paul gets me.
Oh, yes. He
I think
always has the shirts.
I think it was in maybe Uzbekistan. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Yes, the time difference. Apologies.
Yeah.
If
That's cool.
Case, I will try and keep it relatively brief, so you could.
Yeah, I was looking at. I just had a look at the the questions. Yeah. Those questions that you sent to me, I was just laughing about them. My favorite muscle. That's the only question I remember.
I know, right? The last one, just the one you actually really want to think about. Yeah, let me see what's going on.
Can you see?
Oh.
Can you see the fire? The fire here?
Yes. Oh, that's
it's really cold here.
I was about to say, yeah, you're entering winter over there.
Oh, it's the middle of winter, right?
Oh yeah, goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm over the cold, Coach. I'm over the cold. I finished my last winter. I'm done.
Where are you? Which state are you in there? And
I'm in Virginia. I'm in the East Coast on the U.S.
Oh,
yeah.
I can get cold. I can get cold there, eh?
Yeah. This past year, it snowed a bunch, actually. I was it would be the last winter I have here. It'd be snowing more frequently than I would like.
I saw on some of your Instagram shots. They look pretty cold.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, so
did you get a doctorate of physiotherapy, like a master's? Yeah.
I got my doctor of physical therapy degree just this past May. And so really, I figured what better time to pick your brain, because I've always wanted to, even as an athlete. I'm sure if you could remember, probably first time we met, 2011, I had way too many questions.
I remember, right? Yeah.
Too many questions.
Yeah, you're not the first person that actually like my neighbor, for instance, a young guy. He was only 9 years old when we moved to this house, and he was interested in physiotherapy then, and all the rugby players, all the like All Blacks and that, they're all at our house for barbecues, and he asked all these questions. Then one day I found out he became a qualified physiotherapist, married a Irish physiotherapist, and now he's got a successful business in New Zealand. Yeah,
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Crazy, eh? Yeah.
And so, well, thank you for agreeing to do this. And really, that's partly why I wanted to interview, outside of my personal gain, but just to highlight your career and showcase that to other people who are potentially interested in this field, because it's such an amazing field. And I really owe a lot to you as far as your influence in me going for it. You and other people like Ryan, Dr. Claris, but that is really the reason why I wanted to interview you today. So we can we can go through the questions, but we'll go with introductions first and foremost.
Okay.
So tell me more about yourself.
Okay, physiotherapist, living in New Zealand, qualified. I mean, I went straight from school, and in those days it was a 3-year course, and then we had a year where we had to work practically, to be registered. So it's really it was a 4-year course, but they used to call it a 3-year course, and now they've officially called it a 4-year course, and then you can do your postgraduate stuff afterwards. But I qualified straight from high school. I was qualified when I was 20.
Oh my gosh, Coach.
I know, crazy, yeah. And I started work in Wellington and New Zealand after qualifying in Dunedin. Dunedin's one of only 2 physiotherapy schools in New Zealand. I say 2. One in Auckland and one in Dunedin. And I qualified in Dunedin, went to Wellington for 2 years, and then ran my own hospital, actually. I got promoted to a little town of 5,000 people. when I was 22 years old. So I had physios and physiotherapy assistants, and I actually had to do everything in this one sort of small town of 5,000 people. We had, orthopedics in the morning, and then I had my sort of hour or so with the geriatrics, and then a bit of stuff with pediatrics, and then in the afternoon for 2 or 3 hours I'd do the outpatients clinic. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I had no idea you did this.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I had my own house and everything. It was a good pay scale. And that's where I met my beautiful wife. She was a nurse in theatre. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then at that stage, I was also a track sprinter, 100-meter sprinting, right? And when I was in Waipukurau, this is a small town, I had 3 months to train by myself outside of all the coaching from my father, coaching from all the other athletes and stuff, and being involved with other athletes. I had to run on this small track which had like bumps and holes in it, and I had 3 months to train, and I thought I was never going to make it to the nationals. I qualified, and I won the national title while I was at that small town.
Wait, so you're running
it was such a big thing in the town,
and you're competing,
and so that was 1980, right? And so I was sort of like, it made the national, like it made the local paper. It was a headline that I was the New Zealand sprint champion, because they never had a sprint champion. That was okay. So that was when I was still sprinting in those days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And then that year I also made the national team to go to the World Champs and World Athletics Cup and stuff like that. That was a big year for me. And then 80 and 81, those two competitions. And then I traveled overseas for 2 years with my wife, and then came back to New Zealand in 83 and continued to be a runner. Yeah. For about the next 5 years before I took up the bodybuilding. Yeah.
Okay. And so when you were doing the running and the bodybuilding, when you returned to New Zealand, were you still treating patients? Were you still at the same?
When I came back, when I was overseas, I spent 2 years, and about 8 months of that I needed to raise cash, right? So I got a job as a physiotherapist in Hastings, England.
Oh, wow.
In a hospital, and so I continued to work there. But when I came back to New Zealand, I still wanted to continue track. And the best sprinters in that time were in Hamilton, H-Town, where I am now, right? I'd never been to this town before, but I knew that was where I wanted to continue my track career. So came to Hamilton and my wife and I set up in Hamilton in a little flat. And I started working here just for a couple of other physiotherapists for a couple of years. Okay. Continued the track, but my 2 years overseas didn't really help my track career. And I still did pretty well. I was still pretty quick. I could still run 10.6 for the 100, and I was still ranked in the top 5 in the country.
Amazing.
But I didn't really win the nationals or do anything big after that. And it was 87 when I was 30 that I retired from the track and focused on my physiotherapy career, starting my own business and my family and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I had a year where I got out of condition. I put weight on. I lost my mojo for athletics and stuff, and I just thought, I have to do something. And I then started my own physiotherapy business in 1985, 2 years before the end of my track career. And I had a little gym I started up, training in the gym after I'd retired in 87. And I started mucking around in the gym, and one of my patients was a very good bodybuilder. And he looked at me and he thought, hey, you know what? You want to do something different. You're only 30. You still got something to give. Try bodybuilding. So I said, okay. So a year later, I was a national champion of novice, national novice champion in bodybuilding. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah.
You just went for it. You decided, why not? Let's try it out.
Well, what you're doing now, like you're doing your powerlifting, right?
Yeah.
Which I've done, of course.
Yeah, I
went to doing rack pulls and racks, and squats and bench and everything. And I did the powerlifting, obviously a lot later. I did the powerlifting when I was a master in 2011 to 2012, 2013 was when I did the master's powerlifting. But I just took to it. Yeah, I loved it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So what led to your involvement with Guam Rugby in particular?
Well, when I started my business, I was also looking after the Waikato team, right, the rugby team. And I also had a club, which was my main source of income, the Hamilton Old Boys Rugby Club. and one Willie Hitaraka was playing for Hamilton Old Boys. Yeah, he was a lock playing for our club. And so he was a patient of mine for many years. Him and all his other Hamilton Old Boys, cronies and all the police he was involved with, they were all patients of mine. So in 2010, I was still doing some physiotherapy. I wasn't, focusing on big teams. I was doing a few clubs and a bit of first 15 rugby for St. Paul's Collegiate, which is a very prestigious school, right? It's a private school. And I was looking after the team, and Willie had also been involved the year beforehand. And he came to watch one of the games, and he came to the game one day in 2010 and said, hey, would you like to go to Shanghai in a month? For what for? And he said, well, to be physiotherapist for a sevens rugby team. And I thought, yeah, I didn't even know who it was for. I said, yeah, I'll do it. Who's it for? I thought it was going to be a New Zealand team. Yeah. And he goes, I'm looking after the Guam national men's and women's teams, and it's the men's sevens in Shanghai. And I'm, yeah, that sounds cool. And then he says, yeah, then 2 months later, we're going to go to Kota Kinabalu to play in Malaysia. I'm, wow, okay, yeah. So I did that in 2010. And so, yeah, it's through Coach Willie, yeah.
Yeah, and so can you tell us a little bit more about that experience working with the Guam rugby teams?
Oh man, it was great. I had no idea what to expect. And in fact, the trip started really well because on the actual plane, I was with Gordon Titchens, the New Zealand superstar coach who coached for years. He's the most famous New Zealand sevens coach. And I had no idea what to expect. And he was going up there. And he was on the same plane. We started talking, and he says, yeah, I know Coach Willie because he'd been involved with him before in rugby at different levels. And so I got quite excited about it. He kind of explained to me what was involved. I had no idea how big the tournament was and stuff. And yeah, it was. I met the boys, literally jumped into a transit vehicle at the Shanghai airport and 33 degrees temperature, coming from freezing cold temperature here, and then straight to the park where we were playing, and met the boys there. Got given my uniform, and we were playing. It was crazy. I was like, I met Paul. Of course, Paul was the first person I met of all the players, and people like Randy and Steve Sablan, and that they were all really welcoming, and it was fantastic. I loved it. I had no idea what to expect. I just took my own gear, my own massage table, a couple of machines, a little TENS machine, and a little ultrasound, and all my kit. And yeah, I now had my own room in a flash hotel. That was pretty cool. Got my own little room and became, as you know, I'd set up my clinic. You've been there before. Yeah. And the rest was history. It was fantastic. I loved it. And I just couldn't wait till the next trip. So yeah, that was cool.
And so what about with the women's team in particular?
Yeah, that was the same. Next year actually. Yes, that year we had two trips. We went to Shanghai, Kota Kinabalu, and the next year we didn't have a men's trip that year. We had the ladies, as you know, in Noumea, New Caledonia. Yeah, and fond memories of that because I'd never looked after a ladies team before, and I think the thing that I had to do that year was a reflection for the physiotherapy board here in New Zealand on my trip. And looking after the ladies team. And of course, the thing I always remember was, for instance, the ladies, always like wanting to, at the last minute, go and have a pee. I still remember it really vividly, eh? And you know who it was? It was Kayla. I can still remember, like about 30 seconds before our first game in Noumea, Coach, I've got to go have a pee. I went, what? I couldn't believe it. So yeah, it was... the girls were, the guys, they just go behind a tent somewhere, but it was funny. And treating the ladies was different, of course, and the privacy factor and all that kind of stuff. And of course we had Willie's wife there as a chaperone. If you remember rightly, we had this room that we had in our hotel somewhere, and she could have tried to make private, maybe the room quite private by putting paper all over the windows and stuff. I can still remember it. It was, of course that was a little bit different, but I had never done a female team before, so it was different to treating the guys. But I will say one thing, I think the girls were probably harder and tougher than the guys in some respects. I thought it was cool. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Guys can be real prima donnas, in rugby, and hand out all the time, and and just totally demanding. Whereas the girls would sort of, they were tougher, harder, and sometimes in some respects, in terms of more gratitude. Yeah, so it was great.
Well, it's nice to hear that, and I didn't know that was your first experience. I had no idea. I would have never guessed.
Never treated a ladies team before. Wow. But that was cool. Yeah, I do remember getting to the airport with Coach Willie, and he picks me up and says, "Pete, we've got a problem." And I went, "What's that?" He says, "We've only got 9 players." And I went, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 or 3 of them are pregnant, and I went, "Oh my goodness." And I can't remember. So we only had. Yeah. Did we have 9 or 8? I can't remember. We only had hardly any.
Had 9. I think we had
9. Yeah. Instead of 12 or 13. And
I think one of I forget who got injured on the last day, and so we wound up with 8. But we
ended up with 8, and then of course in that game, which I still remember it because we could have beaten Rarotonga, and that's when now I remember her name because it's the same name as one of the girls from Jersey Shore.
I know
your captain, the park
starts with the J.
Who? Jen.
Yeah.
Jen, and she's got the same name as one of the girls from Jersey Shore, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Jen Farley. Yeah, that's it. And of course, she actually had that severe spinal injury, that neck injury. And that's the second time I've been in a situation where we had to lie on the ground and hold her head and everything, and then we had to whip off in the ambulance, her husband in the ambulance with us, ripping through the streets of Noumea. I didn't tell you, probably didn't have a chance to tell you, because that was a crazy trip, man. That was right, flying through the streets and up into this old hospital where the technology was way behind. It was crazy, yeah. But that game, I still remember Tiffany Talada, I think, was chasing this ball down, and we're down by 10-5, and it was near the end of the game. And it's funny how you get memories of these things, eh? And the ball was chipped through, and on the angle, if she got it, she would have scored, but it went out.
I know.
And then they called the game off. I know. And that was a fantastic performance by us against Rarotonga, because they were rated well ahead of us. So yeah.
That trip will forever. That changed everything for me. That trip. That was my first time on the international stage, and so.
Because you would have been pretty young then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think I was 18. 18, 19,
right.
Something along.
Yeah, I remember.
Definitely intense, but humbling. And yes, like I just want to reiterate, we were so thankful to have you. And
Thanks.
You did make a huge impact, I believe, for us, especially with only 9 players and having to make sure that you are going to play and you're going to play every single game, and you're going to have to be okay with that. And so you taking that into account and doing everything possible, staying up until like midnight to make sure all of us are taken care of. So can you tell me a little bit more about how you manage a day when we're on tour, or when the men's team is on tour? Can you tell us more about that?
On tour, of course. Well, sometimes without knowing the players, if the doc was there as well, we'd just look at a list and we'd go through each player, and maybe even get them through the room if we had enough time, and say, hey, look, just give us a breakdown of what's been going on with your injuries, and any continual injuries or ongoing injuries that you've got, anything we need to really address at the moment, and have a list of the to-do list, a red flag list for people with current injuries, and then a sort of a list of those that aren't injured, and you start like that, and have a sort of a importance list, and you look at the background, discuss how we're going to treat them with the doc and I, and cover over things like cramping, which obviously every time you played it was pretty hot in Asia. Cramping issues and how we deal with that, and dietary issues, and I'd take control of the diet as well because of my involvement with the bodybuilding and stuff. But generally I would have a list of players that were at the top of importance and then down to the least important. Then talk about timings and put my list on the wall. As you know, I'd try a list of appointments available, and so I would treat at least once a day, but sometimes I do twice a day. If we're on a tour and there were some serious injuries, I'd have a morning treatment and an evening treatment, which, as you say, could go on from like 8 o'clock after dinner, maybe to midnight every day. Yeah, and set up those treatment times and start the only clinic. And yeah, I mean that was important to make sure that the players and you have to make them accountable, keep their appointments. And what Coach Willie was like, if you didn't keep your appointment or you were late, if he said a meeting was at 7 o'clock and you turned up at 6:55, you were late.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
if you're not
he was a real
early, you're late.
that discipline thing. That's a New Zealand thing, eh? It's and Coach Tony Penn with the current men's team, he is even more so. Really, it's a big thing in New Zealand, and the discipline factor, which flows onto the field. You got to be, and the bully would always call it ABCs. Remember that? See nothing, believe nothing, confirm everything. Right?
I still use that in my everyday life, Coach.
I use it all the time. In fact, I go ABC. I say confirm it 3 times. And the number of times that's been helpful. Just everything in life. Confirm everything. And like Willie would always do that. He'd ring up, make sure the bus is there at 8 o'clock. We're going to be there by 9, and then he'd ring the same courier, the same liaison officer again. Hey, are we still there at 7? Yeah. And he'd do it 3 times every time, because invariably something's going to go wrong.
Always.
Yeah. So the players, they knew that they had to be, and they had to keep their appointments. And of course, on game day, that was really important as well, because I would make sure the food was all right for game day at the right time. And if I had my stuff with the cramping, that stuff I bring along from Balance, which is a product that we use in New Zealand, but taking it nighttime and taking on the day of the games to make sure that we didn't get cramps. And with the guys, particularly guys like Randy, who would cramp up terribly, and Paul's the same. We always have the usual suspects. So we tried everything. By the way, I went to a conference on sports medicine recently, and the big thing now is pickle juice. Have you heard of that?
No.
Yeah, and it works.
Personally, yes, but I haven't heard of it being an actual topic.
Well, in New Zealand now, they're recommending it. The doctors, they were going on behind the physiology behind it and stuff. But basically, you had a jar of like pickles, pickled onions or pickled gherkins, and just pour that and have a glass of that prior.
I'm not mad at it. I love
an event where it was hot.
Yeah.
Crazy, yeah. But yeah, so we do organise all that kind of stuff, and then of course before the game, I used to for 15 players and 7 or 8 reserves for the rugby, for the 15 side, I have to allow 2 hours for strapping. And of course, you do all the most important strappings first for the most important players in the team, and then down the order you would have at the very end reserves who needed their line-out lifters and stuff like that. So you'd have to have a list, but you'd have to have that list and do that and plan it properly as well. If you didn't do that, you come and get to the game and people come up and say, Coach, can you do my ankle? Can you do my shoulder? How come you didn't put your name down on the list? And they don't realise it. They learn then because you tell them off. Say, hey, you need to have your name down, and you need to have, if you've got a shoulder and an ankle, you need to allow 10 minutes, not 5 minutes. So players learn their responsibility is to get there on time and to tell me exactly what to strap. And so that strapping is really important. So getting that organised and making sure it's all done. So you don't really get to the game. People are sweaty. People haven't had their legs shaven. The ladies, it's different, of course, but with the guys, if they haven't. So I always take my clippers. That's another big tool to take along is your hair clippers, which can shave people because as you know when you're strapping someone,
it's going to take forever.
Shaving legs, shaving anything on guys, which is hairy, so that 1, the tape's going to stick, and 2, it's not going to hurt them, right?
Yeah.
So all that kind of stuff, that you learn from your own experience, because I know. And I've talked to other teams, physios and other team members, and they're looking at the physiotherapists they had over the years. Some of the best physiotherapists aren't the highest qualified, but they're the ones that have got the ABCs, they've got the strapping skills, they've got that ability to communicate, they're team players, And some of the better physiotherapists with the higher qualifications don't make great team physiotherapists.
No, just thinking full circle now, you are up all night basically getting everybody prepared for the next day, and then on game day you have to be up extra early to get those same players prepared for the actual match.
That's right.
And then considering their diet, considering anything that might happen during the actual match, during the actual tournament. And making sure you're still available, but also holding the athletes accountable, and that communication piece is so important.
That's right. Yeah, and of course, Coach Willie and every team does it. You always have what you call, we call them in New Zealand the dirty dirties. Those are the people that aren't even playing. They're not even in the squad of the 23 or 20. It's 22. It used to be 22, but it's now 23. Or the ladies, it's a couple of players that may not even be in the reserves, and they're the ones that will carry your bag and your massage table. At a certain time, they have to be there because time is everything. And they're the ones that go around and knock on the door and say, "Hey, take your drink, your cramping drink, and make sure that everything's done on time." So it's vital to get those two. It's always two people to help you out with your kit and with everything else that you need to do on game day. So you got to have them, and that's important in the team. So they don't realize it, but it's an important job.
That's yeah, you're so right. I man, it's been so long since I competed, but that piece is so important, and that just only adds to how much you need to lean on your teammates and lean on everybody and make sure we're all working in a cohesive way so everything goes according to plan. Because
that's right. I mean, you got your doctor, and you got your manager like Steve Grantham. You got Dr. Tom, people like that. You got your manager, and those two guys, they help out as well. And everyone has to do their job. It's a vital cog in the team, and people don't realize it. So but the physio, we're kind of like the hairdressers, who listen to everyone's story. You hear everything, and sometimes you'll hear things that the coaches and the managers don't hear, and you might sort of quietly, discreetly say, "Hey, did you know that Joe Bloggs has got this issue going on?" And no, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah. So like you kind of hear everyone's stories, eh?
Oh yeah, and I distinctly remember a time where having an injury. I think it was against either Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan, and got a stinger, and I started to have my peripheralization of my symptoms. And coach was like, "Get back in there," and you're right there hearing this, and he's just like, "No, she's not playing anymore." So right. Also just being an advocate when you need to be for the
the coach is he's ultimately the one that makes the call before the game, of course. But during the game, if you have a doctor on one side and a physio on the other side and something like that, then the doctor makes the final call. Yeah, that's always the way it's been. And the physiotherapist might be the only one that's first there, and you may not have you may have one physio, no doctor. So then you have to take over the realm of the doctor. And I've been like that in a few times where the doc's given me, medications like Voltaren, anti-inflammatories, and painkillers and all sorts of stuff. And you have to be an administrator of pills, which is, it's pretty big responsibility. And you have to make the final call. But generally, if you're on the field and there's a decision to be made where someone comes off, it's the doc who makes the ultimate call. Yeah. You can make, you can give your opinion. But of course, with us, when we were in Noumea the first time, there was no doctor. It was just us. So.
Yeah, just us. I was very small then.
It was crazy.
So if there is one thing, just with all these experiences, that you could give to current physios, physical therapists, or physical therapist hopefuls, what would you offer?
One tip? I'd say do it. I still think it's the greatest profession, eh?
Oh yeah.
And I was so rapt when you took it up, because I think there's so much opportunity. Okay, with COVID it's different now, but the opportunity, especially if you're interested in sports medicine and being involved in team physiotherapy, if you're really keen, I'd say just go for it and try and strive for. You got to remember, you just don't go straight into the All Black team or something like that, or like a Waikato team or the Chiefs team, unless you've done your time, eh? You got to do your time. And a lot of these young physiotherapists, they get a little bit keen sometimes, and I think they go straight into a senior role. But you got to start up with a club, which I did, and then work your way up, and slowly. It could take years before you finally get there, but you just be persistent. And when you get to be part of a team, even if it's not the All Blacks, even if it's just a club side or a Waikato team, it's a great experience. And and then you also got to remember that when coaches change, you can sometimes lose positions. There's been a couple of times where I lost positions in top provincial sides when coaches come in, and it's no reflection on the physio. You got to remember, don't take it personally. You can lose your job only because it's not because you're a bad physiotherapist, just because the coach comes in, just like Coach Willie did with me, and bring someone in, you know. And I've seen physiotherapists lose their rag over it and say the wrong kind of things and burn their bridges and never ever get a good position again. And I can remember a classic example. Like, I was the Waikato team physiotherapist for 6 years, and we had a fantastic team, and we're going through, and we were number 1 or 2 in the country. New coach comes in, and Tim Robinson, one of my rival physiotherapists at a rival club in Hamilton, he got the job. So you know what I did? The first thing I did is I rang him up, I congratulated him. I said, hey man, good on you, and gave him some advice, and he really appreciated it. And Kevin, the coach, Kevin Green, was coaching Waikato back in 92 through to about 96. I always got on really well with him, you know, and off the field. And I saw him in the street after he'd named this other physiotherapist, and I think he thought I was going to give him a serve, yeah, give him a hard time. I said, hey man, look, no, there's no bad blood. I know how it works. Well, anyway, John Mitchell, the All Black coach, he took over the Chiefs in 2001. He picked me, right? And one of my other colleagues, good physiotherapist, he lost his job. He got really angry about it. I didn't care about it. He got angry and didn't say it to me, but told other people what he thought. Then John Mitchell lost the job in 2002, and Kevin Green, that same coach that dropped me, that took Tim in 92, the same Waikato coach, who was then able to pick his physiotherapist, he picked me. Said, no, I'll take Peter. And because I had that story, I had that good relationship. But if I got really upset about it, and when I saw him in the street and gave him a bit of a serve or let him know how upset I was, I wouldn't have got that job. So I got the Chiefs job for a few more years because I kept my relationship going with those players, and I didn't take it personally. Some people do.
Yeah, you can't. You really can't. And I mean, anything you do in life, especially when it comes to your career, even just as an athlete, the way you present yourself and how you behave towards it's a reflection of you, it's a reflection of your team, and then in certain platforms and stages, it's a reflection of your country. And so it's all these things, but it always boils down to those relationships that you
it does.
Are so
and that's what being part of a team is, you know.
Exactly.
You can't take it personally. And you know, you also got to remember, my advice too to physiotherapists, you know, is on-field decision making. You can sometimes make a mistake. Again, you can wear it on the chin and be really upset with yourself, but sometimes things happen on the field, and you've got to be accountable. And like John Mitchell was really great. Like, if you made a mistake on the field and you made a call, maybe you said a player wasn't injured and you left him on the field and he became a liability and resulted in the team scoring a try. I can think of a classic example that happened with me. And he didn't take it personally. He said, look, what did you do wrong? What are you going to do about it? Let's not talk about it anymore. Put it behind you and move on.
Exactly.
And just, you'd appreciate this because it's happened to other physiotherapists before. It happened with the All Black captain, Sam Cane, 2 years ago, when he walked off the field with a fractured C4, totally unstable. Like, he showed me the x-ray. If he'd fallen or slipped, he would have been quadriplegic. So he hurt his neck in South Africa, and the team physio and the team doctor came out, and Sam's tough. And they said to him, hey man, we need to put you on a collar. Let's just make sure. He goes, nah, I don't want to do that. I want to walk off. I'm all right. There was no red flags, no tingling in the arms. There was nothing to suggest that he had a broken neck, just maybe a little bit of whiplash. And he was getting a little bit of pain radiating into his shoulder, but nothing that was ever to suggest a severe injury which required surgery. And he walked off the field. And then they should have put him in a special collar and put him into a stretcher and carried him off on the gurney. They didn't. And afterwards, they were horrified, and they were really criticised badly for that. They were two great doctors and physios. Just because Sam was a tough guy, he said, no, I'm not going off on a stretcher, no, bug that. And he walked off. And he got into the changing room and collapsed.
Wow.
And then started having radiating symptoms down his arm. That's when they realised, and they were horrified that they hadn't done the right thing. But anyway, my situation, we were playing for the Chiefs, we're playing against the Sharks from South Africa. And one of our number 8s who, this is another thing too, you need to know what a player's sort of pain levels are like. He was a wimp. He would always wimp and moan about an injury on the field when generally he didn't have a major problem. He was able to carry on. He always scream and yell and, overreact and catastrophize. Anyway, he went down on the field and hurt his arm, hurt his shoulder. And we got out there, and what we didn't know, he'd completely ruptured his pec. Pec major had ripped off. But because it had ripped, there was no severe pain. A bit of shock at first, but there was no severe pain because there was no ends to hurt, right? So we get out there, and with a pec tear, you have full elevation, right? And that's a big thing. You check out his elevation, he could do it. And is it sore? No, it's not too bad, coach. It's not too bad to me and the doctor and everything else. And he said, okay, you can carry on playing. And then when he went on to first tackle, that's when he realized the arm just flopped backwards and he let a try in. A try was scored because he missed the tackle. And afterwards, we realized what had gone on. We got onto the field and dragged him off. And then we found out. And so the doctor, who's New Zealand's top Olympic and sports doctor, Chris Milne, and myself, we got into a special meeting with the doctor, with our coach, John Mitchell, and said, no, what did you guys do wrong? Well, we just misread it. Mm-hmm. We thought, one, that the guy, because he normally catastrophizes, wasn't screaming about his shoulder, so I thought it was okay. Yeah. Secondly, it was a pec tear, and, you know, you don't normally see it. It's unusual. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, so you can actually make, so, yeah, you got to be accountable for your on-field decision-making. That's another big one, too. Because you only get one chance to make the right call.
Yes, this is really awesome advice because you really, you know, you're taught these things, right? Different grades of muscle tears and but in that instance, I don't think I would have thought that it was a full tear of the picture.
No, it's the only one I've ever seen. Only one I've ever seen. And funnily enough, you know, Sam Cane, the All Black captain who plays for our team, the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. He's one person I've had a lot of time with. He did his this year. He ruptured his pec and he's out. He's had surgery and he's off for the whole year.
Oh my goodness.
The same guy broke his neck 2 years ago.
It just goes back to that assume nothing, believe nothing, confirm everything. Really live by that.
Can you imagine? You imagine in a game like, say, it's a World Cup final, and your star player, say Dan Carter from the All Blacks, right, mate? And 5 minutes into the game, you're playing the South Africa in a World Cup final, and Dan Carter sustains what looks to be like a hematoma of the quad, but you don't know how bad it is. And you think normally you'd take that player off, but he's the vital cog in the team, and it's a World Cup final. And the coach is saying, what are you going to do? You know, you think, shit, he's going to be a liability. You would take him off, and you take him off, and he can't come back on again. That's the rules, unless he's a front row forward. And you take him off, and 5 minutes later, he's running up and down the field saying, hey, coach, I don't know what the doc and the physio took me off. I can play, but it's too late. You make that call. That's the extreme. That's the sort of the worst case scenario. Mm-hmm, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Everything's on the line.
Oh, it is. Yeah. So. Yeah, but you're saying Sam Cane, he's from Hamilton. He's a local boy. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Have you been watching the All Blacks, following them at all?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. And I mean, really, well, since PT school, that's been far more difficult, and then also time differences. But for when I can, I do. Yeah. But so, Coach, this is another question because for me, I haven't started practicing just yet, and of course, I'm an athlete, and I just want to know, how do you balance being a physio and being an athlete simultaneously? When I was a physio athlete / sprinter / bodybuilder, that was the hardest part. But for me, with my own business, what I do is I start early and I finish late. So I start at 6:45 a.m. in the morning, and I usually get home around about the same time. And what I do is I allow 3 hours during the break. 3 hours at lunchtime, so I can get to the gym. I could do my training. When I was a track athlete, I could do some training during the day. Mm-hmm. For the last 2 years when I had my clinic, the first 2 years of my clinic, and 85 to 87 when I was still a track athlete, I could go and train at lunchtime as well by having that big break. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so 3 hours break, I could have my shower, my feed, and get back to work in time, and still do a sort of 8.5 to 9 hour day. Mm-hmm. So for me, being the boss, but that's a different scenario to being someone employed, right? Yeah, it'll be different. Yeah, it will be very difficult. Yeah, but that's how I did it. And then of course at night time, I could plan my meals and what I was going to take to work with me, and my protein bars and my supplements and all that kind of stuff. I could work it out at night time, and it was easy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, time.
It wasn't easy. It was manageable. Yeah.
Yeah, finding time to carve out during the day, and then doing your due diligence the night before, and making sure everything is set up for success the next day, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, but easier said than done. Oh goodness, yeah. Well, so what are some of the best resources that you feel has helped you along the way, whether it be athlete, physio, anything, your big go-tos when you need,
you know,
answered
with the
or
physio,
help?
with the with the athletics, of course, when I was in terms of resources, my father was my coach. And, you know, in New Zealand, we have a thing called the Halberg Awards. They're like it's a very prestigious award for sportsman, sportswoman of the year, team of the year, coach of the year. You have a massive crowd. It's huge, and it's live on television, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my dad, he won that award at age 87 for the lifetime achievement in sport.
Wow.
Because I don't know whether you know that my dad coached 135 New Zealand sprint champions.
135.
Yeah. I know you might have seen it on Instagram, but if you go to my Instagram and go back 2 or 3 years ago, you'll see me with a penguin suit on, you know, with a bow tie and everything. Mm-hmm. And my dad went up there when we were at this big auditorium. There was 4,000 people, and they did the life story of my dad, and they showed me as a sprinter and all this kind of stuff with Dad, and me and Dad going to because he was also a manager at the World Cup, and I went over to Rome and stuff. And yeah, so having that, that was my resource. My dad was I started sprinting when I was 5 years old, I was a little kid, you know, and then I won my first provincial title or state title when I was 8. But having my dad as my coach, it was amazing. And when I won my national title, mm-hmm. I had a real emotional experience about it. I just looked back and somehow I just you know, a light bulb went off and I realized just how much I owed my dad. So on the medal, I engraved his name on it. I put Barry Hunt on it and my name, because they didn't normally engrave your names on it. Yeah. And I sent him this letter, and I've got it still because he gave it to me to keep, because he's 90 now and he's on his last few years. And on the letter, I just told him how much I appreciated what he'd done for me. It was really cool. That's amazing. So that was my dad. With the bodybuilding, I had a coach for the first year, and the rest of the time I just self-explored the internet and was in the infancy in those days, but self-explored different programs from Arnold. Arnold was a big influence on me. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I read his book back to front. Arnold book. It's like a Bible of bodybuilding for me. I followed his principles. I followed Arnold's principles, like a lot of bodybuilders do. Mm. And and then I just I got advice from a lot of people. But yeah, I worked it out for myself. So I coached myself really in bodybuilding, and then I coached other people, of course. But as far as physio goes, of course, my biggest influence in physiotherapy and the way I treat people is Brian Mulligan. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of Brian Mulligan?
Oh, yes.
He's New Zealand's most well-known, respected manual therapist. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's written books. If you get any book you want to get, Brian Mulligan's little book, it's only little small paperback book on how to mobilize and treat people, musculoskeletal mobilizations. I've based a lot of my my treatment principles on the Brian Mulligan way of treating people. Okay. Yeah. See, and I've been to every course he's ever done. Went to his last big course where we had a big dinner and we sat beside each other, me and Brian, and he's in his late 80s now. So wow. Yeah, he's the biggest influence, by far the biggest influence on my physiotherapy career. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the result, and you don't need a lot of information from Brian Mulligan. He's his way that he treats and mobilizes with movement with mobilization. I don't know if you've heard of them before, but like, for instance, a classic example is most rotator cuff injuries, if they're chronic enough, will have an anterior displacement, like a slight glide forward. You know, you see it in bodybuilders who think they walk around like a gorilla with their shoulders anteriorly displaced, right? Mm. And one of Brian's favorite techniques for getting rotator cuffs to settle down, and for any in-range, you know, lateral rotation, external rotation, in-range elevation problems, is that he puts a safety belt around them from behind, and he glides the shoulder back at the same time the patient's doing elevation at the same time. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's one of the famous techniques. And then you can get miraculous improvements in someone's elevation of the shoulder, external rotation of the shoulder, and the rotator cuff just comes right. He also believes that 9 times out of 10, when you get a anterior talofib ligament ankle sprain, classic inversion sprain, mm-hmm. that when you get the inversion sprain, because of the angle of the ATFL, that it pulls the fibula at the bottom anteriorly, maybe mm-hmm. only a minute or two, and it's slightly displaced. So from day one when they come in, and it's painful, you'll actually strap the fibula backwards and glide it in a posterior glide, and then keep them in a stirrup strap after you've done that. So you glide first into your stirrups, and they will recover 2 times quicker than the ankle sprain. There's stuff like that. 2 pearls of wisdom from him. Mm-hmm. And that's just 2 things that I could mention from that. That's the way he works.
For somebody
you learn from experience.
During a tournament like this person.
But I advise you to get Ryan Mulligan's book.
Okay.
Ryan Mulligan, you search it online and get it. It's only a little small book about probably 120 pages, 130 pages, and it's got everything from treating neck, lower back with snags and nag techniques, and all the seatbelt mobilization techniques and all the principles behind it. It's an amazing book, and it's my Bible. Yeah, and there's a lot of other books I've got, but that's the one book I go to. Yeah.
And so you briefly mentioned Instagram. Is that where people who are interested in connecting with you or learning more about you, is that where they can?
Yeah, if they want to, they can connect me through. I haven't got a big Instagram account, but people get in touch with me like you did through Instagram. Yeah. They in my email that you've got, Peter Denis Hunt email. Yeah. I'm not a big social. I haven't got a Facebook.
And you know what? I tried to restart it, and I realized that was a big mistake. I no longer have it. I'm back on the no Facebook.
Yeah. I think the thing about social media, as you know, that FOMO thing is and you see it all around the world with particularly young kids. They're looking at all their friends so-called having the greatest time in their lives, but in reality, they've all got backstories. They're all depressed and anxious, and things aren't that well. They aren't that rosy, and they see all the stuff going on Instagram, but it's so fake. It's not realistic. Yeah. And I don't know. I've seen a few of my friends have to just cut their Facebook, or they get addicted to it, and Instagram as well sometimes, and they get one negative comment out of about 100, and it freaks them out all night. It's like, yeah, it's not good for the mental health, eh?
No.
Yeah.
So we're wrapping things up. My last question: what's your favorite muscle? Oh wait,
shoulders, delts. Guns, shoulders. Yeah. Straight away, my favorite. They've always been striated delts. Tie in between the delts and the biceps and the triceps. And the big shoulders, the big melons on the side. My favorite. Yeah.
Wait. Speaking of which, are you getting ready for any competitions? Speaking of being.
No, I don't know whether you saw it on my Instagram, but I went to Romania when I turned 60. I'm 65 next year.
I know.
Yeah. But I went to Romania when I turned 60, and that was my last competition, and that was 2017. But no, not really. But I'm training hard. I'm still strong in the gym, and I haven't done powerlifting for a while because I actually got the whites of my eyes, they blew out when I was doing some deadlifting. I don't know whether you can go back and look at my Instagram shots going way back, but yeah, what happened was I really overexerted myself, and I kind of semi-collapsed, and then my eyes, the whites of my eyes, they just blew out, and they went completely red, and went to a cardiologist and got a blood pressure pump on my arm for 24 hours, and just to see if my blood pressure got too high, and it was getting too high when I was actually moving around, not when I was resting. So they had put me on blood pressure tablets. It's a family history thing. My father had it, and I was advised not to do any one-off powerlifting type lifts anymore. So that year I did a 270 kilo deadlift, which 600-pound deadlift, and a 261 kilo squat, which is about, I think, 550 squat, and a 162.5 bench, which is about 350 pounds. Yeah, that was my best, and that was it. I haven't done it again since. I just do reps, but I train not as a powerlifter. I train as like you're doing. I'm doing just bodybuilding reps now. High reps. So are you going to do a powerlifting competition?
I have talked to my coach about potentially doing a mock meet in the coming months. Only because I really don't know much about the sport itself. I haven't been introduced to it before. I mean, with our programming with Paul and Ryan, if we do have any type of weightlifting, it's Olympic style in nature, not necessarily
snatch and clean and jerk.
Yeah, exactly. And so only being introduced to the sport in December, January, and building up those movements, being comfortable in those positions. And so now that I think that we've kind of gotten to the swings of things, got into a motion or a rhythm, I should say, that we are looking to potentially take that next step. So doing a mock
into a powerlifting.
Powerlifting. Powerlifting.
Yeah. Look, I've got a few ladies that I've helped out over the years, and one lady, man, she was like just this tiny little thing, but she came out and she just blew all the records away. She just like you, she had good technique, and it was amazing to watch. And then she went on from there, and she did a bodybuilding competition as well. Yeah,
that's so.
Yeah, I mean, I think she did something like 135 deadlift. What's that? 280 or 290 or something.
Yeah, that's pretty damn good.
So what are you doing? What's your personal best like for one rep maximum?
So I'm gonna do pounds because I'm just terrible with kgs. But so right now my squat's 210, my bench is 150, and my deadlift is 300.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's a good deadlift. That's about 135, 140. Yeah.
I mean, but man, coach, I wish you could see when us and the girls would train in the gym. I mean, the programming that Ryan and Paul had us on. I mean, Kayla's hitting 300 deadlift. Liv is hitting 300 deadlift. Like, we were so unbelievably strong. And that's what I think I owe, like, having such a great foundation is training under those two individuals, and then Billy, of course, for years on end, and seeing how that can, that consistency really shows in those numbers.
Yeah. Really, I've seen on the Instagram stuff some of the programs, and they look really good. I mean, you should pursue it because it's a great, the thing about powerlifting is it's a real camaraderie sport, because you can go into your first competition, there might be 10 ladies, right? And you might come last, but you might do personal best in every lift, and man, you don't care. You just you exceed everything, and you get your 3 personal best, and it's you against the tin, right? That's it. And all the other people are really right behind you. It's fantastic, and there's no cattiness. Generally, there's a real good camaraderie. I love it. And bodybuilding, I used to get cattiness out the back, and everyone's narcissistic, looking at each other in the mirror and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's like it's pretty much it's not a nice sport, but powerlifting is. It's a great sport. Yeah, I'm
excited. I love the community that my coach has created online. He's a physio in Canada, so all of our interactions have been through the phone or the computer.
Yeah,
but
I know. I mean, you should go for it. So I'll be really interested to see what you can do, because I think your technique looks pretty good, eh? Like it's your bench press, man. The way that you get your thoracic arch and then slowly drop your butt down and get that, basically make it a decline, right? Mm-hmm. I could never really get a really good arch in my back. That's why my bench press should have been stronger. Mm-hmm. And because in bench press, you've got to have your feet flat, your bum down, your shoulders down, but if you can get that big arch in your back like you do, and then bring your bum down and then come down, it's that's a real gift, eh?
I'm going to be honest. I didn't realize. I mean, relatively speaking, because there's always going to be someone like way mega stronger, but I didn't realize that how solid my bench is, and until after being told by a number of people, and I asked people who have competed, and I asked their numbers and stuff, and when I'm being told certain things about bench, I'm actually surprised. I had no idea.
Yeah, no, I could see straight away your technique's excellent, and your deadlift and your squat. I mean, using the power of your legs and just keeping that position of your back the way you've been doing, I think it's fantastic. So you just want to keep going. So when would you do it? When would you do your first competition, you reckon?
Probably
if you do one,
anywhere between 4 to 6 months from now. Of real competition. Woo! Let's see how the mock meet goes. And I mean, right now I'm studying for the licensure exam that I'm going to take it in August, and then immediately after I'm moving back home to Guam. And so, I think once I get that mock meet underneath my belt, then I could consider potentially competing, so it just opened my eyes up so much. I didn't realize there is a powerlifting community back on Guam, and they have competitions at Custom Fitness. So it's just really exciting to potentially meet new athletes and link up with people in a completely different sport that I'm not used to. So I'm really excited. I don't doubt that I will after I do this mock meet,
Yeah. Oh, cool. That'd be great. And the federation that I was competing in, I mean, it's the World IPF. That's International Powerlifting Federation. Because there's about 3 federations, eh? Do you know that?
There's a bunch.
the best one, the most respected one is the IPF.
Okay.
That's International Powerlifting Federation. And then there's I think one called Global Federation or something, GPC, Global Powerlifting Corporation or something. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 of them. But the one that the most accepted and prestigious one, I think, is the IPF.
Okay.
And the Americans love that too. So.
Oh yeah.
Hey, did you watch the NCAA athletics?
No, I didn't. I know.
Did you hear about that?
There's
a lady there.
Crazy.
There was a lot of freshmen that did really well. There was a girl. She's only 18, I think, in the 800 and the 400. Her last name's MU. MU. Yeah, she ran like 49.6 in the 400, the fastest in the world, and she ran like, I think it was 155 in the 800, and she's going to be the Olympic champion. I mean, if she doesn't win it this year, she will probably break all the world records. She's only just a new freshman, and I can't remember which team she ran for, but I was watching on TV on ESPN. It was amazing.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way the NCAA track. I mean, I think probably 50% of the athletes that won their individual titles will probably go on to make the Olympic team. That's how strong they are, right? The sprinters and stuff. And it's incredible.
Amazing.
And they're all young. Yeah. So what's your college called? University of Virginia?
Mary Baldwin University. And then they do have the satellite campus, Murphy Deming College of Health Sciences, but Mary Baldwin University is the actual overlying university that I went to. So it's about
that's in Virginia. Yeah.
Yes, it's an hour and a half away from where I'm at right now here in Richmond. But yeah. Well, thank you so much, Coach Pete. This has been so much fun. This is great. And I hope you're okay with me potentially sharing this on Instagram.
Yeah.